Hello and welcome back to Homemaking with Joy. I'm Rachel and this is week 3 of the Pantry Challenge. You'll get to see all the dinners I make this week from our pantry. Tonight's meal will be a one-pot meal. Tomorrow night I know we're having a slow cooker meal, and the rest of the week we will find out together. I don't do a lot of meal planning, but I like to have lots of ingredients and things on hand. I usually think about it in the morning, come up with a game plan during the day, and so if I need to thaw anything, it can thaw during the day, and then I make dinner at dinner time. My husband comes home at like 6 o'clock-ish and we eat shortly thereafter, so juggling camera and dinner making and kids is always an adventure, but it always turns out great and we fill those bellies. So let's get working on our one-pot meal. Tonight it is fried rice. The first step in this recipe is to get some fat heating up on the stove. I'm using lard in this case, but you can use any oil or fat that you like to saute your vegetables. I have one onion here that I'm going to chop up, make it as large or as small as you would like. I like to keep the pieces a bit on the smaller side because I have kiddos and I try to sneak the onions past them, although they are very good at finding the onion pieces in anything that I make. I try to tell them it's flavor, and when they do end up trying it, they do like it. So into the pot it goes, and I'm going to let that saute a bit while I get the rest of the ingredients ready. I also like to put salt on top of my onions while they're sauteing. It helps to draw out that moisture, and salt just makes everything taste better. So I'm happy to add it liberally to whatever I'm cooking. You can easily make fried rice without any meat, but this is a pot roast that just won't quit. It's been sitting in the fridge. I've used it all the ways I can use it. My husband has taken it in his lunch, and we just need to finish it. So the best way to do that is to hide it in some fried rice. This pot roast didn't have any strong seasonings, so it won't overpower anything in the fried rice. So I'm just fishing out the little pieces of pot roast and cutting them smaller so they will mix right into the fried rice. There are also lots of chopped onions in here, so as I find those, I'm also going to cut those a little bit smaller, and I will add them to the finished fried rice product. Everything is going into the pot to start warming up with those onions. The onions and beef have been cooking for a little while, and it's time for the next step. I'm going to scramble some eggs. So I moved the meat and the onions off to the side a bit so I can put the eggs in the middle and cook them a little more intentionally. You can add as few or as many eggs as you'd like. I always err on the side of more eggs because I'd like more protein in this dish. Tonight we'll have the beef for protein and we'll have the eggs. The rice will be the carb component, and I will have some vegetables thrown in here soon too. Time to scramble the eggs and get them cooking. To the egg, I'm adding some salt and pepper, some minced garlic, and then mixing that in with the beef and onion. It'll cook together that way and then be evenly incorporated when I add the rest of the ingredients. I have a bag of frozen mixed vegetables that I keep in the freezer for occasions such as this. I'm just going to dump in as many vegetables as I see fit. I also like to use this recipe when I have random bits of vegetables in the fridge that need eaten. Fried rice is a great way to clean out your fridge in a sense that whatever odds and ends, you can add them to it. Whatever meat you have, whatever, you can probably use it in fried rice. Now for the rice component. I've heard from multiple Asian families that using rice that is not fresh is your best option for fried rice. So this rice has been around for a day or two. I made a big pot knowing that I would be making some Asian dishes this week, just to make my life a little bit easier. You can completely customize how much rice you want in here. If you want to stretch your meat a little bit further, add more rice. If you want it pretty dense with the fillings, then add less rice. It really doesn't matter. It's completely customizable, and that's one of the reasons it's so great. I am adding coconut aminos to my fried rice. This is a soy sauce alternative, but soy sauce, whatever you have, throw it in there. It'll work great. I'm going to add it and then mix it in to see how much is in there. Again, this is by eye, this is by heart. There is no measuring. Just add until it feels right. I generally err on the side of caution and put less soy sauce or coconut aminos in there, and then I will put the coconut aminos on the table in case anyone would like to dress their fried rice a bit more than I already have. It's time to throw this in some bowls and feed my hungry crew. I like that this one pot has our carb and our veg and our protein, and it tastes really good and it's easy, and I'm grateful that my in-laws taught me how to make fried rice all the way from Cambodia. Today is January 16th and dinner is just about ready. You might hear my family playing in the background. Everybody is in the living room by a roaring fire because we had a beautiful snow day. So I was super grateful for a crock pot meal that I prepared earlier. I got Thai peanut chicken out of the freezer. I made that during my postpartum freezer meal spree. I can link that video below if you want to see what else I made. But it just finished in the slow cooker, and here I have that pot of rice. Usually I like to mix up the carb that I'm serving with dinner, so like we'll rotate through potatoes and pasta and rice and stuff, but because I made that big pot, we're just rolling with it, and it's making my life easier to just serve rice these last couple meals, and then we'll switch to something else later. But Thai peanut chicken and rice. I probably won't serve a side dish or a vegetable or anything because it was a snow day. My husband and the kids were outside playing, so when they came inside at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, they had some hot chocolate and some toast. Again, because it was a snow day, I did some baking. So we have fresh bread in the house that they snacked on, and I have some cookies in the oven right now. And it has been a beautiful day together. So grateful that my husband can work from home and the boys got to go out and enjoy the snow while I got to stay inside and snuggle my baby. So let me show you what dinner looks like and then we'll get to eating. It is January 17th and I'm getting ready to prepare dinner. Tonight's dinner is a baked penne casserole. I grew up eating this one, so it's pretty special to me. It's very straightforward, but I have a few tweaks from my childhood favorite. So I am just using boxed pasta. I could make homemade penne with my pasta machine, but I don't have the energy for that today. So we're using boxed. We are using homemade and home canned pasta sauce. Instead of the ground beef in the recipe, I will be using ground venison because I don't have any beef right now, and then some mozzarella cheese on top. That's basically it, and then you bake it. I think we'll have green beans on the side because, again, we have a slew of home canned green beans that really need eaten, and that's it. My husband was in the mood for a pasta dish, and so this is what I came up with. I thought it would be easy, and I don't know if you can see. Yeah, it's still like the afternoon. It's still 3:55. But I can make this now while the kids are occupied and then pop it in the oven later, and we should have a simple dinner. To make the baked penne casserole, you cook everything separately and then combine it to bake it, which basically just melds all the flavors together, warms it up, and melts the cheese. So first here I'm going to cook the venison. I added a little bit of lard in the bottom so the venison wouldn't stick. Venison's also a little more lean than ground beef, so I wanted to make sure it would cook and not just burn on the bottom of my skillet. My venison was still slightly frozen on the inside, so I'm just going to chop it up as much as I can, get it warmed up, and cook it in the skillet. Meanwhile, you can see my blue Dutch oven next to me that has water in it that's heating up so that I'll be able to cook the pasta right next to it as I go, trying to save myself as much time as possible, of course. Here is some salt on the venison. Again, salt makes everything taste better, so don't be afraid to add salt. The good salt, that is. This is Redmond real salt, and I keep that in bulk. My pasta water is boiling, so I'm going to take that lid off carefully and grab my penne. I like to keep lots of boxed pasta in the basement because it's just really, really convenient. I'll throw that in there, mix it up, and let that boil. Whenever I make casseroles like this, or I know I'm going to cook my pasta a second time, I always use the lowest number recommended on the box for cook time. So I think this was like 10 to 12 minutes recommended cook time, and I only did 9 or 10 to make sure they weren't too mushy. The venison is done and the pasta is cooking, so I'm going to shred my mozzarella cheese. I prefer to buy blocks of cheese and shred it myself instead of buying pre-shredded cheese, because the pre-shredded has a coating on it to make sure the cheese doesn't clump together, and I'd really rather just not eat extra ingredients if I don't have to. So it's easy enough to buy the block. They freeze beautifully and I can keep them on hand for situations like this. All I have to do is put it through the food processor. And there you have it. The pasta is done cooking, so I'm going to drain it now. I'm using this method instead of colander because I'm going to keep the pasta in the pot and use that to combine all of the ingredients. The recipe says to mix everything and then put it in a 9x13, but I don't see the point in dirtying another dish if I don't have to. Because my Dutch oven can go in the oven, I'm just going to use it that way. I dumped in 1 jar of home canned pasta sauce, and now I'm going to add the venison. I can't tell from the recipe if I'm supposed to use 1 jar or 2 jars of sauce, so I added just 1, but as I mix the venison in here, I'm going to see that it is not enough pasta sauce. So I will grab another jar and mix that in too. It brings me great pride to be able to use my home canned items in our everyday cooking and know that I'm providing good nourishment for my family and saving us money from buying 2 jars of pasta sauce. Also, for those of you who care, I do go back and scrape all the sauce out of my jars. Some people have commented on that, and don't worry, nothing goes to waste. I just don't put that on camera because it's not very fun to watch. I threw about half of my shredded mozzarella into the pot, and I'm going to mix that into the pasta. So as it bakes, it'll melt together with the pasta and the meat, and then later in the process, I will put the other half of the cheese on top. This is what it looks like when it's ready to go in the oven. I was supposed to put the lid on when it went in the oven, but I forgot, and it turned out just fine. Here it is with the melted cheese on top. It is warm and bubbly and ready for my family to serve. It was super convenient. I'm glad I decided to cook it in the Dutch oven because, again, you're not actually cooking it, you're warming it up. And it worked out perfectly. My whole family enjoyed it very much. I had half a jar of green beans in the fridge that needed eaten, so I just warmed those up in the microwave. And here I cut some toast, added butter, and some garlic powder for some homemade simple garlic bread to go with our Italian-style dinner. I like that I'm capable of creating meals of different cuisines. You know, we're more Italian tonight. We have some more Asian nights. We have classic American nights. And it helps keep our food more interesting. And I don't get bored of cooking the same things over and over again. It is January 18th and I'm starting to think about dinner. Tonight we're going to do loaded baked potatoes. I have a couple potatoes that still need used. I got some frozen sloppy joe out of the freezer that I made before my baby came. We have some cheese to put on top and a vegetable of some kind on the side. I wanted something that would be quick and easy since I have a church event tonight, and something that wouldn't make a lot of dishes. So I'm going to use the Instant Pot to cook the potatoes. I'll just use a pot on the stove to warm up the sloppy joe mix, and then whatever vegetable we have I can just heat up or serve raw if it's carrot sticks or something like that. Something easy so that my husband doesn't have a lot to do while I am gone at the church event. I'm going to a women's event where we get to drink tea and eat dessert and listen to a fellow church member's testimony. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think it'll be refreshing. It'll just be the baby and me, and it'll be nice to have a night off a bit. So let me show you how I'm putting dinner together. The potatoes are the component of this meal that are going to take the longest, so I'm starting with those. I'm washing my potatoes. These are the last 3 potatoes in my house for the pantry challenge, and that makes me kind of sad. I do really like potatoes, and I need to figure out a better way to store them in my basement so I can store a whole bunch. But that's clean, and then because they're kind of gigantic, I did cut them in half. Otherwise, it would take too long to cook, and this is more of a serving size for one of us. There were some bad spots on them, so I decided to cut those off, and I'm poking holes in them so they do not explode when I cook them. For the record, is this the safest way to do this job? No, and I know that, but it is the fastest, so I'm just doing my best. I need 1 cup of water to put in the bottom of the Instant Pot so it will steam cook the potatoes. And now I can add those potatoes into my pot. You'll notice I do have the trivet. I don't want the potatoes sitting in the water. I just want the water eventually steam to cook them. I'm going to set my knob to sealing if you have this type of Instant Pot, not venting, and cook them on pressure cook high for 20 minutes. Depending on the size of your potato, your cook time will change, but 20 minutes worked great for me. This is the Sloppy Joe mix I pulled out of the freezer. One night while I was pregnant, I just made like 4 pounds of Sloppy Joe and then put it in quart bags to freeze. And so now I have this great meal and you can't even tell that it was ever frozen. I am ready to plate the loaded baked potatoes. You can see how easily my knife went through that potato. They are cooked very well. And I'm going to mash the inside a bit for 2 reasons. 1, to increase the surface area of the butter because we really like butter. And 2, to let out more of the heat. Like most toddlers, mine don't like hot foods, and so as much as we can let them cool before the meal is ideal. On top of that, I'm going to add some salt and pepper to flavor the potato. And then I will grab the Sloppy Joe to put on top. Feel free to add as much or as little as you like on top of your baked potato. We used this whole pot because we really like this Sloppy Joe recipe. Finally, we're going to add some shredded cheddar cheese on top. I think I said I was going to add a vegetable to this meal, but I ended up not doing that because we didn't have time. I had to eat and run as it was, but it was really delicious. I did go to the store that night for 3 gallons of milk and some cream of tartar, which you'll see later. It is Friday, January 19th, and we are having a beautiful snow day. I'll share some images of the snow. It's crazy to believe that my garden is covered up now, but just in a couple months, it'll be full of greenery again. We are enjoying the cozy day at home. I made some homemade Play-Doh for the big boys, so they're enjoying that right now. And I'm going to play with some real dough. I decided we're having breakfast for dinner, so I'm going to make my homemade freshly milled and yeasted bagels because breakfast sandwiches are just so much better on homemade bagels. So I do have a full video showing you how I make those. I'll share that in the description, but here are some clips of me making some bagels today. One of my boys' favorite indoor activities is Play-Doh, and I like to make homemade Play-Doh. These are all the ingredients that I use to make homemade Play-Doh. It turns out great every time. It's soft and squishy and has the same consistency of store-bought Play-Doh, but these are the only ingredients in it, which is awesome. And one reason that it was very important I grabbed the cream of tartar at the store last night. This recipe came from Miriam over at Mother Could on YouTube. I will link the video that I used to make this Play-Doh. The bagels are done and cooling, and so I'm moving on to the rest of dinner prep. Here is some bacon that I'm laying out on a baking sheet. I'm going to use the oven to cook it today instead of a skillet on the stove because I also have an egg bake that I want to do in the oven. If at all possible, I like to maximize the kitchen appliances that I'm using, and it takes a long time to cook a whole pound of bacon in a skillet, but it's much simpler to throw it all on this baking sheet and cook it at once. Again, it's easier to crack eggs into this dish and bake it in the oven with the bacon than to man 2 skillets on the stove top to cook the eggs and to cook the bacon. Plus, we like the eggs done in this 8x8 because then I can cut them and make into breakfast sandwich squares. It holds together much more easily than a regular scrambled egg, and it's a lot easier for the kids too. I'm keeping it really simple this evening with eggs, a splash of milk, and some seasonings. I think I added salt and pepper, probably onion powder and garlic powder, and that's it. I will scramble it until it's all together and then put it in the oven. Really easy. The other convenient thing about this meal is that I can pick whatever oven temperature that I need. So if I were including something else in the oven, I could cater to that temperature. I think I chose 400 degrees to cook the eggs and the bacon at the same time, and I don't know how long it took. I just kept checking it until it was done, and then we ate. I used to have to follow a recipe to cook these sorts of things, but I don't anymore, and that confidence is really encouraging. Keep cooking, everybody. You will get there. I'm ready to assemble dinner. We have bagels, we have fresh eggs and bacon, and this is making me hungry while I'm watching it. It was a delicious meal. It is Saturday, January 20th. We still have snow outside. My husband didn't get to shovel it last night, so he took the big boys out this morning to go shovel, and they're always so excited to be in the snow. I have the baby in here with me, and we are going to whip up some pancakes this morning. It is nap time in our house. When my husband is home, he can lay down with my oldest son and get him to take a nap, and it is beautiful because he could use a nap at least once a week, and my house is completely silent. It's a beautiful thing. Anyway, we had lunch with my parents today. It was just like sandwiches, hot dog, whatever. I didn't take my camera, so that one's not documented for you, but there you go. That's what we ate. For dinner tonight, I just spent some of my quiet time here figuring out what we are going to eat. I grabbed a bag of Good Ranchers chicken from the freezer. It's thawing. It's the Italian seasoned. And I also have a butternut squash that really needs used, so I'm going to cut up the butternut squash to roast. And I found a bag of broccoli to roast along with it, and then probably some rice on the side, and the kids will probably eat the chicken and rice. The vegetables will just be for exposure's sake. I will enjoy the vegetables. And because of the quantity, like I'm going to cook all the chicken, I'm going to cook all the vegetables, and I'll make enough rice that we can also eat this tomorrow after church, because I need something quick after church. The kids are a little bit hangry, so this will cover my dinner tonight and our lunch tomorrow. I'm getting the rice started first because that will take the longest to cook. Just some white rice and water. I often use broth, but I didn't have just a pint of broth on hand, so water it is. Now to cut up the butternut squash. These things are a beast, so I'm extremely careful to keep my fingers out of the way, and kids were told they were not allowed anywhere near me and this knife while I was cutting the vegetables. Some people like to peel the whole thing and then cut it, but I find that to be too slippery. I like to cut it into these quarters so that I can core it this way, and then I am able to peel the outside much more easily. These smaller pieces fit in my hand better and feel much more secure as the peeler is flying by. I've definitely peeled skin off my finger before, and that was very uncomfortable. So I prefer to do it this way. It gives me enough to hold on to, and it just feels safer because these squashes are tough. Once I have it peeled, I like to cut it into little cubes like you see on my baking tray back there. They cook more quickly. Knowing I'm going to put the broccoli on the same tray, these are more likely to cook at the same rate if they're smaller than if I left them bigger. Plus, the kids like eating them in little pieces. I was quite impressed. My oldest son decided to try the butternut squash and really liked it and had multiple helpings of it. So we've been doing some garden planning, and he told me we need to plant butternut squash in our garden this summer, and I completely agree. I had leftover bacon grease from cooking the bacon last night, so I decided to use that as my cooking fat today. I figured it couldn't hurt to add bacon grease to the vegetables. I thought if anything were going to make my kids try it, the bacon grease would certainly help. I'm also adding onion powder, garlic powder, and lots of salt. I have found that I don't think I can oversalt my foods. This good salt, it makes everything taste really, really yummy. I'm going to mix all those together, and then we will get this into the oven. There are our vegetables. Moving on to the chicken. This is the Good Ranchers chicken that we order. It's super high quality and really delicious. They individually wrap each chicken breast so you can decide how many you want to cook at once. I often cook the whole bag. And this is the Italian marinade. So it's really convenient to have it ready to go. All I need to do is pop it in the dish. You'll see me cutting open the bags. The chicken is still slightly frozen, which actually makes it easier to squeeze out of the bag, although they're a little explosive sometimes. I cooked both of these at the same temperature. I don't remember what it was, but I cooked it till it was done, and it was really yummy. Thank you so much for sticking around and seeing what we ate for dinner this week. I have one more video in this series coming out next week, so you'll have one more week of meals, and then I will switch to different content. So, first of all, if you haven't subscribed, please do so you can see that video next week. But also, what other videos would you like in the future? Have you seen anything in previous Pantry Challenge videos, or have you seen anything in this video that you'd like me to film for future content? If you have any recommendations, please leave those in the comments. I need to put this away because the kids are ready to play after a great dinner. Our bellies are full. We have empty dishes here, but the dishwasher's already running, so it's going to be a good night. I'm ready to sign off, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, friends.